Welcome to Inside the Champion's Mind, a show dedicating you helping overcome mediocrity in the pursuit of being world-class in everything you do in life and love and legacy. We're your hosts, Laurence.
And Karen Tam.
And well, this is the Inside Champion's Mind. We have like literally 36 hours between my trips. I just got back from Tokyo, Japan.
You did?
And I'm heading off to Dublin, Ireland tomorrow. Very short trip, just so I can come record. No, of course not. I really miss my family so much that I had to cut my trip short to Japan. We were supposed to go to Okinawa, but I didn't because obviously I wanted to be home with family because I knew I had a big trip coming up to Dublin. But more importantly is that why was I doing, what you might be asking, why am I doing Japan? So
I thought they might have been, for those of you watching, might have said, why is Karen wearing a hat?
Yes, well, because for those of you watching.
I do have a baseball hat on
first
today.
time in like years.
Wait, you know what? This was given to you.
Yeah, she
and you were unpacking your bag, and I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have that.
So
now
see,
it's mine.
I have no choice. Basically, I'm wearing American Dream U. She's wearing an American Dream U hat. So let's talk to you a little bit about American Dream U. Now, this podcast is not about American Dream U, but it's the lessons that I learned while I was in Japan. I was there because of American Dream U. So this is a shout out to Phil Randazzo and his family for creating this amazing. I don't even know what you call it. It is a charity because there's no money being made, and basically being able to pour millions of dollars to helping veterans, the U.S. military veterans, to transition into out of military into civilian life. And I'll talk to you a little bit about why that's so important. And then also too, Jess, thank you so much for organizing everything. And I was with a whole bunch of entrepreneurs speaking to the veterans, helping them to either look at entrepreneurship as an avenue rather than just always going after a career, because there's people who go after careers and there's also people who are better to be their own boss. And so our job was there to help them, give them skills and the inspirations and motivations, also some skill sets and tactics to help them transition into civilian life.
So this podcast is really going to be lessons learned in Japan.
Yeah, because man, I've never been to Japan before, and I've never been into I know being Canadian and being Australian, we have no knowledge of what the U.S. military does. We just know of it. We've seen movies.
What did they say about the Canadian military? I think we've got one inflatable boat and 2 rubber bands, and we're good to go.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not. But we don't know. We don't really understand it. So this was really new. This is going to sound really stupid, for lack of a better word. But I was shocked when you sent the pictures of what the military base looked like, because I had in my mind MASH, that old TV show. I was like, you're going to have canvas tents and it's going to be cold. And it was like a proper little city. And I know that sounds really stupid, but I've never been on an army base. I don't, does Canada even have them?
I actually don't know the answers to that.
I don't know. We've never been invited. So this was a really big eye-opener to us, is the culture that is there. And if we can take a step back, because I didn't know anything about Dream U, and I was asking you, how did this all start? Why did he get into this? Is he part of the army?
Yeah, so I spent some time with Phil. Phil is a great guy. Just such a down to earth, but such a giving soul.
He must have reminded you of me.
Yeah.
In so many ways, Laurence. That just sounded like me. It did.
Yes, it is you, baby. I'll just nod and say yes. So yes. The key thing here is to know that Phil did this all on his own back, and it's not his full-time job. He actually runs companies. And he did this after 2011, and this might not be the full story, but 2011, September 9/11 happened, and
3 days before our wedding.
4 days.
4 days before our wedding. Good math.
And he basically was inspired, but obviously wanted to join the army or the military of some capacity. I think he was about 33, 35 years old at that point, and he wanted to go in, but he had bad knees. Just the body was broken for sporting accidents, from sporting injuries and stuff, and it didn't occur. And so they said, listen, you have the skills, you got the tenacity, but honestly, we just can't afford carrying a 250-pound man off the battlefield if something should ever happen, and it's not worth the risk. And so he tried many different avenues, and at the end of the day, the military just wouldn't accept him. So you know what? He instead of giving up and said, okay, well, I tried my best, he decided to go help the U.S. military in another way. Using his capacity and his network of entrepreneurs, he started American Dream U. Now he's done over 30 of these events over the last, I think, 3 years. and creating these talks from all over the place. From this is the first international event. This was the 30th event they've ever done. The first international event they ever done outside the America, and really this event has been have so many veterans who either been in the military for 3 years or 20, 25 years in the military and transitioning to civilian life.
But it never dawned on me how difficult it could be transitioning from that type of life to civilian life. You'd think you're going home.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So let's put a couple of stats. Number one is the American military is their suicide rate is about 22 veterans will commit suicide per day.
That's crazy.
22, right? 22. So that's a huge stat. And second of all is that some of these, most of these military people started when they went into the military at 17 or 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So that's all they've known. They've have no knowledge of the outside world. Just think back, when you were 17 or 18 years old, what your mindset was, and the one thing you went was the military, and you're in the military is very orderly, right? So they basically give you orders. So they've been giving you orders of what to do, where to go, like where to deploy. Like they have some say in a sense, but sometimes they have, depending on what rank you have no say of where you're going to go. So they're going to send you to wherever they want you to go. They're going to get you to do whatever they think you're best for. And you've been told what to do for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years or whatever. And now you got to go back to a life, right?
Yeah.
That first of all has no one's telling you what to do, right? Let's face it. No one's, unless you might have a career or job, but you still get to dictate what type of job you want to go. Mm-hmm. They have to go find a job. They've been saying yes sir, yes ma'am for 20 years of their life, and now they got to go out there to talk like normal civilians. And their pay is completely different, right? Because not only do they get paid, but their boarding, their food is all covered. Not covered fully, but they're subsidized. So now when you go into civilian life, they have to consider all those other factors that inflated costs that they would not have had to deal with in a civilian. So that civilian like us would have to deal with. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety that comes with that. On top of that, most of them have families, right? Especially if you've been in the military for 10 years, you're going to have a wife, you're going to have a kid, you have kids. They have, there's kids all over the military base. This is a very, very tiny base. It's only 2,000 people. Some bases are 50,000 people, right? So these bases are like cities. They're built like cities, and they gotta take care of their family. So they have all these worries about that. And plus, they also, on top of that, is they got skills in the military for their particular skill. Just say it's like working on a tank, for example, or working on a particular aircraft. Now, working on an aircraft, they may get a job into working on aircrafts in the civilian world. But if you have a very specific skill set to say dealing with armory, dealing with fixing machine guns or something, there's not that many jobs out there that in the real world to fix machine guns. So they have to learn to translate their skill sets into the real world, and that's a very big challenge.
I think also too, you'd be losing your tribe. Like you've created a family for, you're living in close quarters with the same people, going through maybe perhaps a lot of strong experiences together, which just brings you together as well. And there's probably that feeling of loss as well, I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I said to them, one of the first point I said to everybody in the military was that, you have family. And that's a real big plus. Because what they're seeing what they're missing, right? So they see the world as going, I'm missing these skill sets. I don't know how to write. I've never had to do a resume. Everything's in codes, what they call MOS codes. Like, so if you're a technician, you're like a, whatever number. Like, so now it's like you got to translate that into a real world. Like what, I don't know.
Well, I can kind of understand this because as a mom, I haven't been working for over 9 years now. Like just the thought if I had to go back into the workplace.
Yes.
Scary.
Right. So this is not just about the military. This is what I mean. Like this applies to anybody who's got to go back to something that they used to know, like yourself.
Yes. You suddenly feel irrelevant.
And then it goes, how do your last 9 or 10 years skills translate to the real world now? Yeah. Like how do you describe that? How do you put that on a resume? And that's a really big challenge. And so one of the things that I go, well, stop looking at. One of the things is that don't look at what you're missing. Right? Focus on what you actually have gained in the last 10 years or so. And one of the things they have gained is family. And I'm not talking like their family, like their husbands and wives and kids. I'm talking about the military is a family. It is such a close unit. Like the thing is, what I noticed that when we went to, when I did PT, which is their physical training, and in the mornings is that you can see that there's no one gets left behind. All right, no one gets left behind, and it's. I know that's I think that's a Marine saying, but there's Army, there's Navy, and there's Marines. But anyway,
we could be totally wrong on that one.
But don't worry about that, right? But each and every single group, being in the military, like being the Army's guys stay together. Being the Navy guys stick together. And the Marines stay together. However, having said that, being the U.S. military, there's a common bond. Just like a sports team, right? Yeah. Everybody who cheers for the same sports team, they actually have this common bond. And that family is really, really tight, which means that you take care of families. And so one of the things I suggested to them, when they go home to their respective, wherever they decided to go, whether New Orleans or Cincinnati or St. Louis or wherever they go, they might not know anybody, but all they really have to do is reach out. Yeah. And they might reach out to their military family. They might not have met them, ever spoken to them or anything, but they will help them out because they're military.
I think it's also knowing you're not the only one going through this, because perhaps they're sitting at home, or like me as a stay-at-home mom, thinking I'm the only one feeling this way. Mm-hmm. Everybody else manages to do it. I've just got to suck it up, but I don't know where to start. And I think really also that feeling of not knowing where to start.
Well, this is where how do you translate this for the listeners, right? The translation is that you need to find your community. You need to find your family, your tribe. I'm not talking about like family, like, husband and wife, like relatives. I'm talking about the family that you resonate with, people that you, that get you for who you are and what you stand for. And yes, that's hard to find. I get that. I know we've had our challenges. It's very difficult when you don't have a tribe, but you need to search that out, because if you don't, you're going to feel like you're doing this alone, and you don't have to do it alone. You do have to strive to find that right community. And sometimes it's a small community of maybe 2 or 3, or sometimes it's a larger one. It just depends. But you have to, it's your responsibility to reach out, to go after that family. That's what's really strong about the military, and I highly respect that.
And is that kind of what the whole American Dream concept is to go and help these people with transitioning? Is there not like any other groups that are doing this, helping people move forward?
No, there's not that many. Like even within the military, there's a group called Soldier for Life, and even I don't want to speak out of turn, but not to name any particular, because who knows what.
I just thrown you into it.
So I think there's challenge. Let's just say there's challenges, within the military program, because let's face it, the U.S. military, like any massive organization, right? Massive organization, it's so bureaucratic, and there's so many red tapes. It's all top down, like it's all in order. So which means that in order to change anything,
takes a long time.
It takes a long time. It's like trying to move a naval ship, right, versus a smaller jet boat or jet ski. Yeah. It's not as mobile, and which means that when by the time the changes actually filter all the way down, it's probably needs to change again. It's like any big institution, and that's the difference between like a startup company, where you can actually make certain adaptations from being the startup company, versus when you're if you work for a big company, it's very hard to see those changes.
Well, I think it's amazing that your friend is, created this. He's doing this off his own back and helping them move forward. I just think
it's an amazing thing.
A lot of respect to him.
And he doesn't make any single. He's actually backed it financially on his own, which is an absolutely amazing thing. So the translation for this part is that he found passion. He found something that he wanted to do, and he's risking his own family savings in a sense to do this, just for a cause, just because. So it doesn't have to be like, everybody's looking for like, what's your financial reward? And I guarantee you, those people, the general who looked after all the bases, right, in Japan, after he came in, he only listened to the last half an hour of the talk because he was busy doing something else. He said, I'm in. I get it now. I'm bought in now. I bought into the vision. And that's what people need to see, because a lot of people sometimes, they're always thinking that you're doing something good for me, but there's got to be a catch.
What's in it for you?
What's the catch for you, So that's one thing. So tribe is really important.
And you also had a talk. You were talking with Joe DeSena.
Yes.
You did a little video. I think we've already put that up on Inside the Champion's Mind. Check it out.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because you were having a conversation with him, and he was really talking about lowering your expectations and increasing your tolerance to pain.
So let's frame this up a little bit. Joe DeSena was one of many speakers that were there. So let's name all the other speakers. I just want to make sure we give them credit. Jeremy Hedon was there, a speaker. Leon Wild. Jeremy runs an online business, very, very successful entrepreneur in the health space. Leon Wild, who he was part of the Navy, and he's worked for early companies. I think he was the 8th employee, a 13th employee of Evernote, which went from like, you know, small hundreds of users to like 100,000 users, like $1 billion company right now. And Spirit Airlines, he was one of the, you know, 8th employee there. So he's done very well, you know, helping others. We also had Randy Kelly, who was the former Navy SEAL sniper. I mentioned him a couple times before, and myself. And then Joe DeSena. Joe DeSena is the Spartan Race founder. So, and if you don't know what Spartan Race, go look it up. But he had basically Spartan Race. It took 16 years, right, to build to the level that he is now. To give you some context, there's 180 different obstacle Spartan races in the world, across the world right now. Wow. And he just said this. When we talk about passion, we talk about Phil and passion. Phil and Joe is actually related, I think, through second cousins. He took 16 years to actually turn a profit. Right? Wow. 16 years to turn a profit. Jeez. So he just turned a profit this year, in the last year. So he's 16 years he's been plugging away. And this guy is next level in terms of their mindset and his type of thinking. This guy walks around with a 20-kilogram kettlebell all around. He takes his family. He's been lived in Singapore last year. He lives in Tokyo right now. Next year he's going to Shanghai just because he feels that when he talks about lowering the standards, he says everybody has this high expectation. Everybody's getting stressed up in life. And in terms of, you know, maybe something went wrong or, you know, you're all stressed about it. He goes, I asked him, I remember, he goes, how's things going? How's your flight? He goes, man, I'm living. How can I not be happy? And that's it. That was a simple thing.
I think he related it back to, like, you think back in the caveman type days, right? Yes. Like, it's a good day if the sun comes up. It's a good day if you weren't eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, if you actually found food, right? Now, fast forward to us now. Yeah. And, you know, we've talked about that, too, with Simon Sinek. He did, like, I'm not sure where the video was from, but they talked about the problem that we have nowadays is that we get instant gratification. You want something, you can buy it on your credit card immediately. You don't have to worry if you can pay for it. And immediately it's sent to you and you get it the next day. Mm-hmm. It's fast. Everything we want it, we get it. And he was saying, too, that in the workplace, it's hard for young people because they've been maybe at their job 6 months or 8 months, but it's not fast happening for them. And they feel like they're not having an impact and they're not getting anywhere. And so they get frustrated and angry. And it's the same with us. Our coffee's not hot. We get mad that you don't have Wi-Fi on an airplane, as he was saying. Yeah. It's the end of the world. And he's like, hold on, like, really? Yeah. Is it the end of the world? Yeah.
Wi-Fi on an airplane? Like, come on.
You know, we've survived all these years without it. And it really kind of, when he said that, I was like, oh my God, I'm one of those people. Yeah. I would totally be freaking out.
Yeah. Well, today was a pure example, right?
No. Where are you going?
I cracked my phone. Right? I cracked my phone.
That's fine.
I cracked my phone. My iPhone 7 when I was over in Japan.
And I won't mention that your wife suggested you should have had a protector on it.
Well, let's not talk about that. And so when I came back, like, it's a cracked screen, and, you know, like, it's upsetting, but at the end of the day, it's a cracked screen. Like, you know, it's a cracked screen. So I had to go to Apple and try to get it fixed, and they didn't have an extra glass case. No one has like extra glass case. It's so new.
It's like a unicorn.
So I had to wait for it, and so, but then the Apple was really, really nice about this, and they decided to give me a replacement phone. Like, they actually replaced my whole entire phone, which is
I think it was just because I was really cute in there.
Maybe it was the hat.
I was smiling a lot. Yeah. Please help us.
It was very helpful. So the guy gives me a replacement phone, which is awesome. But guess what? I didn't back up my phone. Because, well, why would you need to back up a phone if I'm just replacing the screen? Yes. But first of all, I don't have enough space on my computer to back up a phone. I've been frustrated. I just literally got back yesterday. And on top of all this, so therefore I didn't back up the phone. That's the whole point. But so then I go, I don't want to lose these photos. So I thought I'll just airdrop it to Karen's phone. And we spent the next...
Fast forward 4 hours.
No, it wasn't that long. Maybe an hour and a half.
No, it wasn't.
2 hours. 3 hours. Try to transport these photos to another phone. Now, and it cut out a couple times. And inside, like, the first thing in my head, like, oh, like, stupid Apple, stupid AirDrop. Then I wait a second here. Like,
Joe DeSena. I am channel your Joe DeSena.
Well, think about this. I'm literally like taking 2 phones and I'm transporting like information from one phone to the other through air.
Yeah.
And I'm getting upset that not all of it got through. Right. And that's it's just like those little things that we take for granted, that the technology that we have, it's absolutely amazing.
And it's amazing. It makes our lives easier, but it's like...
How long did it take us 20 years ago to send you a photo? Right, on email, let alone. Now I can just like, I was literally dropping like maybe 300, photos and videos across from one phone to the other in the span of like half an hour, and I was getting, frustrated. Yeah. And I just calm down, calm down.
Well, it's learning that patience, that things take a while to happen, but I think we've really lost
We have
lost that ability to do that. How do you get it back? I don't know.
Well, one of the ways he says, I think is really interesting, is that, you need to lower the expectation. So like the expectation is not high. Like we have to have, no, 3G? What are we talking about? We want 4G Wi-Fi, or it's like, we should have Wi-Fi in the air. Like, I really hope they don't bring Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, it's happening. I really don't want Wi-Fi in the plane because honestly, I don't.
Do you think we've become more of a want generation?
Well, we're expecting that the technology is going to solve all our problems, and having email, we have instant connections and everything else, and we have this high expectations of things. And if that doesn't go right, if our coffee is not like the perfect degree when served at Starbucks, or if your egg's not runny perfectly,
what happened to you today at lunch? Exactly. I was watching you to see you get annoyed.
And it's like that will annoy you because you expect that. Yeah, sure. I get you can expect it, but also what if you did it the other way? Because that's actually causing you stress. If it doesn't meet your high expectation, you get stressed. I'm guilty of this. I'm very guilty of this. However, what he's saying is that lower the expectation all the way down, is to say you're alive, be happy. Whatever happens, just be happy. That's one thing. Number two, he says, is that what we have done in society is that we have very low tolerance of pain. We have lowered it because now we live in comfort. Where there's air conditioning, there's heaters, and there's, all these things have happened in our lives that has all this creature comforts that makes you happy, and we haven't learned to suffer. We haven't learned to suffer in a sense. So therefore, like maybe a hangnail now is like so annoying, right? Whereas before, if you were back in the caveman days, a hangnail was like nothing compared to a lion biting your butt and you having an infection out of it. So now we need to so what he says, suggestion is to actually learn to increase the tolerance of
so pain. Am I good because I had natural childbirth? Am I good for life now? I don't need to go through this again, because I know one of the things he does is have cold showers, and I'm not really willing to go there.
So he does burpees in the mornings, or he loves burpees, and let's change that fact. He hates burpees. No one loves burpees. Let's face it, no one loves burpees. But he knows that. But he does burpees, and I do this too. We hate it, but you do it so that when something bad does happen, you go, well, at least I'm not doing burpees. At least I'm not in that cold shower. And it's like putting things back into perspective. You're putting yourself, not always, but enough, like in series of discomfort, is that, hey, the world is actually pretty good. When you take a cold shower, it's like, well, I'm like, you know what? That wasn't so bad. But you're going through it. He hates the process, but, the outcome is trying to change, how you adapt to that world.
It's really hard to stay in that frame of mind. Like, I watch the video and I'm like, right, I'm good. I got it. Thank you for the wake-up call. Tough. And then the next day something happened and I was already out of that. So I guess doing those little steps daily.
It's practice.
It is.
So this is the mindset thing. This is Inside Champion's Mind. This is not something you go hear it and go, wow, that's a really great insight, and I got it. No. It never happens that way. It's like taking that insight and applying it. That's the hardest part. Knowing is one thing, but applying it is very, very difficult. It's very, very hard. It's such a challenge. I guarantee you, if you just apply this one little simple concept of lowering the expectation every single day, you'll start to lower your own blood pressure. You'll start to lower your heart rate, and you are going to feel so much better about this. That you're not going to let the smallest thing get to you. Someone cut you off the road. Hey, at least they didn't bump you. Right? You didn't scratch your car. Like, there's all these things that will happen to your daily life. And trust me, just in the last 24 hours since I've been home, there's all these things that have happened. And I'm just like, I go, well, I gotta change that mindset. Like, it's not that bad. It is not that bad. But it's almost like the universe is like, okay, well, that's not that bad. I'm gonna challenge me more. I'm just throwing me more stuff.
Here's another one.
Because that's exactly what's gonna happen. The universe will continue, because you're going to get challenged, you're going to get stronger, and they're going to test you with harder and harder things. And can you stay in that mindset? But it does take practice. Like anything else in the world, it might take you months and years to get into the right frame of mind. He's taken years to get to his frame of mind, to keep going, keep plowing through. And that's why things like Spartan Race for me was a big shift. I don't know if you've seen the change in me, but in the last, say, 2 years, ever since I dropped CrossFit, ever since I did the Spartan Race, those two things, physically, that has absolutely changed me. Mentally, not physically, I mean that has that, but mostly it's mentally, of the amount of tolerance I can take, about how much I can push myself, and knowing what my boundaries were, what I thought were my boundaries, I was able to do. And that actually has translated into my business life, and also knowing when to quit and when not to quit. All of those lessons have been learned. And that, going back to the military thing here, that's what they have learned, right? The military have learned the mental toughness to be in the game. Now, no, I'm not suggesting everybody is like that. I can guarantee if you're in the military listening to this, I know some of your colleagues are not. Let's face it, I watch some of you, right? I can see it. It's not happening. But for those of you who are mentally strong, right?
God, you're already ahead of the game. If you're already strong like that, wow.
Exactly. And it's amazing to me, like this is really amazing to me, is to watch these military people, the lack of confidence they had in themselves. Right.
But you were feeling that way. You were feeling that way before you went, because I think each of us, we don't see our own genius inside us. And other people will look at you and say, how could you even think that? Look at you. I've heard you speak. I've seen what you do. I know who you are. How could you have such little faith in yourself?
And I had the biggest fear, and I know what that feels like.
Yes.
You know, and I am my own worst critic, and I feel that fear within myself. So I get them. Understand every single one of you who's listening to this, who've ever thought, well, who am I to do this, right? Who am I to do this?
Who are you not to be?
But from the outside world, everybody has this high expectation of you.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's the word expectation. Is that expectation is one thing, but we all feel like internally, for me anyway, so I can talk my experiences, that I don't feel like I can live up to everybody's expectation, because everybody has this expectation that I'll do well, I'll be successful in anything I do, and I almost can't live up to that. And so by having that expectation on me, or just knowing those expectations, is actually more difficult and challenging. And rather than doing that, is let go of all the expectation. What if I just let go of the expectation and just go, let's go back to belief. Belief and expectation is completely different. Belief is like, believe in me, right? Believe in you. Belief in me inside myself, that I know I can deliver the best that I can possibly be. And this is what the message I had for the troops that were going back to civilian life, is that you have so much skill. Like you're worried about your skill sets, like, you know, what skills you have, in your career and your education. Forget that. As an employer, right? And I'm sure anybody who's listening who's an employer, you don't worry about the skills. As long as you have minimum skills, like you can trainable. What you can train is the character, like the grit,
the hard work, the determination,
discipline, your discipline. Man, you're in the military. You've been taught discipline. You gotta, make your bed every day. You gotta show up for PT every single day. You gotta get in line. Like, you've been taught. Like, you have so much more discipline than I would, right? And then most civilian life, and that's the leverage that you have. You will work harder than anybody else. You're gonna show up not just on time. You're gonna be there. You're never gonna be late. You're gonna work harder than anybody else because you got the grit, and that's for anybody, not just the people in the military. Anybody who's willing to work harder than the next person will always win the job. Maybe they might got the first job, but they will eventually win.
But you prove yourself, don't you? Because we talked about this in a previous podcast too, is if you can't see those skills that you have, get 5-7 of your closest people and just ask them, what do you see when you look at me? I'm not talking physical, like, hey, you're good looking, but I'm talking about, like, they'll come up with things like, you know what, you're dependable. You're trustworthy. You work harder than any person I know. And then go with those skills. And, take that in. Believe in yourself with that as well. But then use those when you're going out into the marketplace and go, you know what? I'm going to talk about a time when I was really trustful, when I was really determined, and how I could make a difference for this person or that company.
I think also, too, is also to have someone really close to you that you can trust. Like, for me, I'll fully admit this. There were times when I just felt like I didn't believe in myself. And I would just go up to you and go, hey, like, I'm good, right? Like, you think, and I asked you, and that you just tell me the truth. I can look in your eyes and you just tell me the truth. And that helps so much, to have someone like that cares for you, that loves you, and just will come up to you and say, you're good. Like, you're awesome. And it's Mike Tyson used to have this. He used to hire someone behind him. Right, and basically just pretend you're Mike Tyson and he's someone had behind him, and he used to just whisper in his ears. He goes, "Mike, man, you're the best. You're the best boxer in the world. You're the best boxer." And just used to whisper those words over and over again, so that he can learn to. It's a repetition, like anything else. It's repetition, repetition, over and over again. And most of the time, we don't have that repetition. We don't tell ourselves we're great.
My dad used to do that. You're reminding me of that. My dad used to say because my dad didn't have a university degree, and he was always like. He achieved amazing things, but he was always felt he wasn't good enough because he didn't have that piece of paper. And he used to tell me, this is what he did, and he told me to do it, is I am great, I'm fantastic, I am the best there is. And he had like this, and I never knew he did this. He had like at least 5 minutes of what he chanted, upping himself. And I used to get really nervous about exams and tests, and he told me, just start doing it. And the whole time I was walking to my test, that's all I did. I would just raise myself, but how fantastic I was, and I could do this. And by the time I got there, it does make a difference doing that.
Absolutely, because you start telling your story. Even at the beginning, you might not believe in it, but you got to repeat it so many times. It might be 1,000 times before you actually believe it. Before any of my talks, you might see me in the back of the room, and maybe opening a secret, but you'll see me in the back of the room, and I could be doing two things, right? One, I could be going, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Oh my God, it's coming up. Oh my God. And then that will cause my body to be in a different state when I come on the stage. Or the other talk, I can go, I'm the best. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to give it I know I'm going to. So that's a totally different mindset. Am I being egotistical? No, it's about me playing with my mind, gaming my mind to make sure that I'm delivering the best. I can have two talks, right? One talking negatively on what could possibly happen, which may not, or one's going to help me perform at my best. And you get to choose. You get to choose which voice you listen to, and that's the key. And this is not just in a talk or presentation. This is your everyday life. When you wake up in the morning, what do you say to yourself? What's the conversation that you're having with yourself in the words that you hear? I can guarantee you, most of you don't even think about the conversation. You probably don't even talk to yourself.
No, I can't think before caffeine, Laurence. I'm out. And look, I'm noticing we're winding up at the end of our podcast here.
But so that's the last thing we want to leave off here is one is listen to the voice that you actually have. Take the time to actually hear the voice and what they're actually saying to you. Think about it. We don't spend the time long enough to actually spend that conversation, time to have that conversation with ourselves. I would love to get you to just pause for a second and just listen to the voice you say to yourself. And if it's not in a good tone or not in the great words, then you have the option to change it up. But it might take a little while. It's almost like a record. You need to kind of scratch the record to kind of get it so it doesn't play that track, and then you need to lay down a new track. And that's the best way you can do it, is you create the voice and you listen to the right voice that you want to listen to empower you. So
I like it.
This is Inside Champion's Mind, focusing on what will happen in Tokyo and Camp Zama. I had a great... It's just gone by pretty fast, which is awesome. I hope that you got a lot of value out of that. Most importantly, what we'd love for you to do is do a couple things for us. Number one is go on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/InsideChampionsMind. Please like us there. Comment if you can. But more importantly, please do two things. Subscribe to us on iTunes. That would really help us. Give us a rating on iTunes. That would really be helpful. And share this podcast with others. I mean, you discover podcasts by telling others people, right? So please share this Inside Champions Mind to other people, because that's really going to help us really spread the word and really help people achieve their champion mindset. Right? It is Inside Champions Mind, a show dedicated to help you overcome mediocrity in pursuit of world class in anything you do in life, love, and legacy. I'm Laurence Tam.
And I'm Karen.
We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.